welcome to the podcast. Today I've got a special guest. This is Dave Crenshaw. He is an author, speaker, and I met him actually as a business coach. I don't know if you remember or not. We met at a networking event probably about 10 years ago. And I got lucky because I got you to come in and work with me before you kind of blew up. It was right before you really started getting big. And what happened was I brought you in, 2-day coaching session. And it was funny, I don't know if you remember or not, I told you, your claim was you'll feel like you have an extra 10 hours per week.
Yep.
And it was basically a productivity coaching. I'm gonna let you explain a little bit of what we went through in that, because that was, of all the trainings I've ever done, I tell my team, my real estate team, we talk about it today, but that was the most productive one we've ever had. As far as like actually changing my business and organizing my life, because I'm an expressive personality. By my nature, I'm not organized. But to this day, I use the exact principles that I learned those days with you. So appreciate that, and yeah, I was lucky to have you.
Yeah, well, and I don't think many people are as expressive as Jimmy Rex is.
No.
But I was diagnosed as being off the charts ADHD,
Okay.
and that's sort of my approach. That's sort of what makes me different. Is the fact that, you look at most time management experts, productivity experts, these are people who are inherently organized, right? I joke around and call them sadistic sock organizers.
For sure, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But me, you used to have, I mean, you can see my office right now, but you used to have to use a shovel to get to the desk from the front door. It was horrible. So the approach that I take is adapted to the most crazy busy, inherently disorganized person in the world.
So I was like your perfect customer.
Yeah, exactly. But what I do helps people all around the world now.
Yeah.
I mean, I get people from Dubai to Australia to Singapore, whatever it is. But what we did going into your office was really sort of the prototype of the program that's now on LinkedIn Learning and lynda.com called Time Management Fundamentals.
Yeah.
So, you were paying me to help you come in and help you get organized, but I was also learning and creating that
the best way to do the program. Well, it was a perfect win-win. Explain a couple of the principles. You wrote the book. This was the book that kind of put you on the map. I think the myth of multitasking.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people think,
it's funny we had that handy.
Yeah. Well, don't worry. We'll show. But no, it's funny because I've had so many people will tell me is a good skill. I'm a multitasker, and every time I hear it now, I just laugh because this book that you wrote, the myth of multitasking, that really breaks down how there is no such thing as multitasking. That's kind of what you showed me is the principles that I learned from your training was, number one, you have to have only a select few points of interest where you keep all of your information. It helps you not be scattered. So you said you've got your voicemail, I got an inbox at my office. To this day, I use the same one. It sits there right on my desk. I use one spot in my car, and then I have one spot at my house. Those are my 4 points. Okay. And then I've got my one email. I've had like 4 emails at the time, put it into one, and just everything in my life is funny because as an expressive, people are always like, how are you so organized? And it was literally, I use the exact principles we learned those days.
Yeah, and you've got it right. What you just mentioned were 5, and I tell people they need to have 6 or less gathering points.
Gathering points, yeah.
And a gathering point is any place where something that's unresolved gathers. So like, if someone handed me a book and I just like put it on the floor or put it on the corner of my desk, right? Then I just created a gathering point. And a lot of people, the average person has between 30 and 40 of those gathering points. And what I do is I help them to get down to 6 or less. Personally, I'm at 4 these days. And that's so important because as the myth of multitasking talks about, the real challenge to time management in our day is switches of attention.
Yep.
Every time our attention switches, whether it's because we're trying to multitask or someone just comes in and says, hey, I've got a quick question, right? Every single one of those switches is stealing our time. And I like to say, even though I call the course Time Management Fundamentals, I like to say that our real challenge in our day is not time management, but focus management. And we need to learn how to reduce the number of switches. It's impossible to completely get rid of all of them, but you can definitely implement systems, you can put practices into place that will dramatically reduce it, which is why you got an extra 10 hours a week.
Right. Well, and not only that, it's the energy that you spend when you switch from one thing to the next over and over. So your mind just just feels like it's using a lot less energy to remember and to hang on to things. I don't have to remember where things is. I have them. I know exactly if I need something, one of my 5 spots is going to be there, right?
Right.
And so I remember we did an exercise where you had me write out A through Z and then 1 through 25, and then do all the letters, then all the numbers, and then you switch off each one. And you literally can get like 3 times as quick going the whole alphabet then the numbers, as opposed to having your brain switch back and forth every time.
Yeah, and anyone watching this or listening to this, by the way, if you want to do what Jimmy just said, you go to davecrenshaw.com /exercise, and you'll see a video there, and it walks you through that very process. And that's the thing that I do on stage when I'm speaking to audiences around the world, training them how to be more focused, and in my training courses.
Well, it really brings it to the forefront. You really see it for the first time, you know. And so, well, that's pretty awesome. So you, you originally were doing coaching and everything else. So how did you get to the point? A lot of people that are listening to this are entrepreneurs, or a lot of people want to write books. I've run into people all the time, and you're like, you're a legitimate, you've done 4 books now, all of which I've bought and read. Your latest book, The Power of Having Fun, I actually just bought over 200 of them. I don't know if you know this or not. Yeah, for my clients for Christmas, because you know, I give away a book every year for Christmas, and this was your other book, Myth of Multitasking, was so influential to me. And I think that I do my business by having fun. I've kind of feel like as soon as I heard the title, I was like, hey, I could have written that, you know, like, but amazing book. And so I just wanted to see, how did you get the gall to write that first book? Like, how did that come about?
Well, the gall is another word for craziness.
Okay.
I just, for some reason, thought that I had something that other people wanted to hear. But part of it, though, is like the myth of multitasking is very quick. It's very short.
Yeah, very easy.
It's written in a story format, and it's really the combination, the mashup of all the different people that I coach. You know, even your story is kind of in there. It's hidden in there. And so when I sat down to write that book, it was very fast. I mean, I probably completed it in 1 month.
Wow.
Since then, it's not quite so fast. But
you wrote that book in a month.
Yes.
Amazing. And by the way, the book has been quoted. I'm going to share this because it's pretty awesome. But Chuck Norris has a book that he came out with. The Chuck Norris, he wrote it himself. I think it's like 100 facts that aren't true, or 100 facts about that you didn't know were true, or something like that.
It's the official Chuck Norris fact book.
Okay, got it. And he, in the book, mentions you specifically by name and talks about your book and how multitasking is a myth.
Right, yeah. It's under the Chuck Norris fact. Chuck Norris can kill 2 stones with 1 bird.
Got it.
Yeah.
And so you wrote a book in a month that has gone on to, I mean, I know Gary Keller quotes it all the time. That's Keller Williams. That's the company that I work for, the largest real estate company in the world, and he quotes it all the time. He loves it. But so you wrote it in a month. So was it just you just sat down and just grinded it out, or what? How does that?
Yeah, it was more of like. Well, you have a lot of entrepreneurs watching, right? So they can appreciate the entrepreneurial fit, that moment where it's just like. It just takes over and you have to do it. And that's sort of what happened with the myth of multitasking. It also happened with the 3rd book, The Focused Business.
Sure.
Where I just kind of sat down and just cranked it out. But, you know, a lot of people, when they say, you know, how do you write a book? I use a quote from an unlikely source, which is Richard Nixon.
Okay.
Okay, and Richard Nixon isn't remembered fondly for a whole lot of things.
He did do a lot of good things too, though. So yeah.
But there is one quote that he said. He said, "To write a novel, it takes an iron butt." Right? And there's nothing crooked about that statement. It's a great statement. And I quite literally, when I now write a book, I schedule iron butt time in my calendar.
I love it.
I don't believe that there's such a thing called writer's block.
Yeah.
You put your rear in the seat and you write. You do it. And to me, that's how I've been able to write most of my books.
Okay, no, that's great advice. Well, as far as your book went, I mean, it really blew up. What was that process like? What did you have to, was it a big marketing campaign behind it? Did you use a lot of social media? Because you have a lot of coaching videos and YouTube and stuff like that. I'm subscribed to your email, I watch them all. But how did you get your book to, was it just because the material was so good? It was a little bit controversial? Or?
It's evolved over time. I do think that the controversy is really important. Mm-hmm. You know, as I compare it to other things that I've done, people gravitate toward the myth of multitasking in particular because It still is controversial. It came out almost
Such a good name.
It came out almost 10 years ago,
Wow.
which is why we've got to change the cover. They still have a BlackBerry. Okay, that tells you how dated the book is.
great.
And we've been going to the publisher saying, you got to
get an iPad on there or
put something else on there. But
That's great.
But it still is a problem. It's still a challenge that people have. So I think there's that element. Certainly, the getting a lot of publicity from major publishers or major publications like Time and BBC and USA Today, that certainly had an impact. Although now I see it shifting a little bit. We spend a lot more time with The Power of Having Fun, which you bought. We spend a lot more time with blogs and with podcasts. And I find that that's far more effective now, because if someone's sitting, in their doctor's office reading Time magazine and they see Myth of Multitasking, they got to go through the process of pulling out their phone, looking it up on Amazon, and then ordering.
Sure.
You do it on a blog, you click a link.
Yeah.
It's over.
Well, I love how we acted like that was such a big inconvenience even, right? They got to pull out their phone,
I
they
know,
got to order it on Amazon. But it is true,
from
though.
a
There's
time
4
management-
steps
Yeah,
that you've got to take to order
That's
the book.
something that I even teach from a time management perspective.
Yeah.
The more steps you put into the process, the more switches, the less likely someone is to complete it.
No, that's great. So how did the power of having fun come about? Why the power of having fun? It's such a great concept, but why did you choose that help?
Yeah, well, and it seems odd. I just got done with an interview, and they were like, I was expecting some guy to come in and say waka waka, but here's a put together business guy talking about it. Where it came from was from a productivity standpoint, working with business owners, working with executives, and seeing that they were being far less productive because they weren't taking time for themselves.
Yeah.
They weren't having fun. And so what I did was I got the studies, I got the research to back it up, also called in a lot of my firsthand experience of working with people, and put together a strategy, a game plan to make sure that you have fun on a consistent basis, and how that will boost your productivity, how you'll do better.
Yeah.
So it's sort of the cousin to the Myth of Multitasking. Myth of Multitasking is about what you should not do.
Okay.
The Power of Having Fun is about what you should do, which
sure.
is have fun on a scheduled basis.
Love it. Well, and it's my own business. That was when, in 2010, I made a real shift. Because when I got in the real estate business in 2005, and until 2010, I was in the morning, or every morning in the office, grinding, making my phone calls, follow-up appointments. That was my life, right? And I burned out, frankly. And then 2010, I went to this business model of throwing parties, going on vacations designed to be around the types of people I wanted to be with, all these different things that I would do, charity events and things like that. And my business and my life got so much more fun and engaging, and my business literally doubled as well. And so it's never been more fun to go to work. I literally go hang out with my friends. That's what I do. Even like this podcast, right? I'm meeting with some of the coolest people in Utah, friends of mine. The house we're sitting in, I sold you 2-3 years ago.
Yeah.
And so, but it's just, that's become my life, is just this. And so when I saw the book, I just loved it. The idea of that. And I know, like, when you're going out of town, when you're going and having fun and doing these things, you come back energized. You work harder before you go, because you're not going to be here. There's so many reasons. What would you say are the top 2 or 3 things that you advise people in the book as far as like how to boost their productivity through having fun? Yeah,
well, the first thing is to have permission. You've got to give yourself the right to have fun.
Great, yeah.
I just spoke in Florida, and this woman said, now I won't feel guilty about taking that nap. And you have to understand that fun is necessary. It's just as necessary as water is to a desert traveler, right? You don't expect somebody wandering through the desert to say, well, if you do a good job, then we'll give you a little bit of water. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, sure.
And yet we treat ourselves the same way with our day. And so the first thing is to understand, you have a right, you have a responsibility to have fun. With great power comes great responsibility to have fun.
No, that's great. That's great.
The next thing is to create a schedule. It's not something that happens at the end of the day. It's not something that happens after you do all your work.
Yeah.
And a schedule of once a year on a vacation is not enough.
No, it's
too
not
far
even close.
apart.
Yeah.
You need to have something every day, a little thing. Like my little thing, we're sitting right here in the spot where I enjoy my daily oasis, is what I call it, and I play video games.
It's awesome.
I play video games for 30 minutes. That's a weird thing for a 42-year-old man to admit, but it's true. And other people go for a walk, they like to play games, whatever it is that they want to do. So you need to schedule that and count on it in your calendar. And then I think...
So I think it's an important principle for people to really hear that, to schedule the fun into your calendar.
Right.
I know, like, you know, with my real estate team, we scheduled, like, we do these home run derbies and like wiffle ball games and stuff like that. And it's in the middle of our workday. I purposely do it at like 11 o'clock on a workday because I want them to understand, like, this is actually that important for you guys to understand. We can have fun at work. Like, you know, we're realtors, we're always on call anyway. So let's schedule the fun, make sure that it happens.
Yeah, and just to comment on that, if you think about a salesperson or someone in that responsibility of helping customers, interacting with customers, if you're interacting with somebody who's in that desert mentality of constantly depriving themselves of, you know, I just need to keep going until the next vacation or until I can retire or whatever it is, nobody wants to interact with somebody like that.
Yeah.
But if you're working with somebody who's feeling like it's worth it now, that they're having fun now, your ability to sell and work with customers is greatly improved. You know, I didn't mention this in the book, but I had a good friend who is excellent in sales. And I remember, it still sticks with me, when he first started selling cars, he had a mentor. And the mentor went out and played golf. And he said, "Why are you playing golf?" He said, "The secret of success in sales is to play." And for some reason, that's always stuck with me, and that sort of planted the seed of this concept.
Well, it's funny because I've sold more homes, literally, like, I can trace almost, I've sold more homes by going to Lake Powell than any other single activity I've ever done. No, it's not even close, you know. I sold, the most expensive home I ever sold was $5 million this year. I met that guy on a private plane flying to a BYU Nebraska football game just to go watch football, you know. I mean, that guy chose me because of our relationship, but that was having fun.
Yeah, so let's take that for a second, because there are people listening to this right now, and they heard you say that, and they think either A, that's BS, he's just that's not real, or B, that they feel guilty. I shouldn't do that. I should work harder to do that. And what I want to say is my experience of coaching leaders all around the world. When people do what you just did, they are more likely to succeed.
100%.
So make it a priority, not something that you think you get because you worked hard. Make it a part of the process.
Well, it's funny because I have my business partner / he started as my assistant and became my business partner, Chris. But he, for years, because he's more of a grinder. He's an analytical. He wants to be behind the desk, you know, doing paperwork, but he didn't understand why I was always going and doing all these trips. It was always designed, and he finally, every single deal that came in, we always mark the source, and every time it was like one of my trips I'd gone on, or it was like, you know, it was the group we went and shot guns with, or it was the group we went and did roller skating with, or whatever, you know. And he finally he hit him. He's like, "Dude, you can't afford not to go do all those things, huh?" And I was like, "You got it, dude. You finally did it." Like.
Well, and it doesn't have to. We don't have to all be Jimmy Rex. I don't travel like
sure.
You do.
No. But the concept
crazy, man.
of yeah.
So, but the idea is find what is fun for you. Self-directed fun. That's the other thing that the book talks about, is discovering what's right for you. So maybe for other people it's more introverted.
Sure.
Maybe it's going for a walk. Maybe it's just riding your motorcycle around the city. Whatever it is, you don't have to go on these big trips. You don't have to do these big things. Find what's right for you, and you'll still get the same benefit of success.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, well, and I remember when the real estate market tanked, 2008, 2009, I'd go take these, I didn't even know what I was doing, but I'd go take I called it a mindset break. I'd take a 15 to 20 minute break. I'd either just take a nap, or I would read a book that was like positive energy. I had to do something that just wasn't real estate related. My phone was off, and I'd take 20 minutes. Sometimes I'd go for a walk, things like that. A lot of times I'd just go to the gas station, grab like a drink and a donut or something, but something to like give myself a little bit of a break. And then I came back, I was ready to be productive.
That's a perfect example of what I call in the book a work oasis. That's exactly the kind of thing you
love it. So for people listening, I mean, your productivity coaching, your productivity speaking, you do a lot of speaking, things like that. What are kind of the main principles you've seen? You work with so many business owners and entrepreneurs. What is the best advice you have for people with productivity? Because I think that when I think of you, that's the word that comes to my mind is productivity. What are some of your key things that you teach both high-end, executives, but then also your entrepreneurs just getting started?
Well, the main thing is focus. It's all about determining your focus. And we can look at your focus at several different levels. We can take a look at focusing your work hours and making sure that the work that you're doing is focused on your most valuable activity. I can't remember if we did that together, but there are a variety of different things that you could be doing with your time.
Yeah.
But only one or two is really worth the most per hour. And the more that you can focus your time on those two
We did
things.
do that.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So that's a huge one.
And that's I want to hammer that principle home because most people, and especially I see it in my work, where people just do things to feel busy or feel like they're working. But you just said, like, find the things that you make the most per hour doing, and find a way to spend more time doing that and less time doing the least productive things. Right.
Right.
Is that what you mean by focus?
And yet, the majority of people spend the majority of their time in least valuable activities. The easiest thing.
Give us a good example of something you've seen. I can see
running. Somebody who gets caught up in running errands to the store, picking up paper or whatever it is, office supplies.
Dropping off a check at the bank or something.
The reason why it feels easy is because anybody can do it.
Right.
And so if you're doing those things that anyone can do, then they are by definition low value. The amount of money you make, this is Earl Nightingale. So the amount of money you make will be in direct proportion to your ability to do it, the difficulty of replacing you, and the demand for it, right?
Perfect. That's a perfect explanation of value of a human in the workplace. Right?
Yes, exactly. And so the most valuable activities are the things that have high demand but not many people are willing to do. So you want to take a look at your day and say, what am I doing that anybody could do that I could hire someone else to do?
Sure. And
I need to start doing that. That's the same way that I've built my business. I look at every single step in the process and I delegate out anything that is not at the very, very top. Because for me, at the very, very top is delivering the content. So that's me up on stage, or it's creating the content.
Right. Well, you told me, the way you phrased it to me, I remember it to this day because I wrote it down, is if anybody else can do it as good as you, then you should delegate it to somebody else.
Yes.
That's a good way to put it. I was like, that way it clicked to me, like, oh, so like some of these things that I'm doing, but like I feel like I'm good at them, but it's like you said, well, yeah, it's because anybody would be good at them. They're low value type things. So delegate those to somebody that you can pay much less than what you're worth per hour.
Correct.
Beautiful.
Correct. That's how you can build up your business of yourself. Even if you're not an entrepreneur, you can build your career around that concept of partitioning out all the different low value stuff and just focusing your time on a couple of things.
I love that. So last advice that you would give to entrepreneurs or maybe people that are thinking about doing something that scares them, writing a book. I mean, for me, I've thought about writing a book for a long time, and it's something that I will eventually do. I love the idea of having an iron butt because that's, lead butt, whatever. But what advice do you have? How did you get... I guess, what would you tell them? The people that are thinking about, like, they've been thinking about doing this thing for a long time, they're just holding off. What advice do you have as somebody that's a doer, somebody that's been doing these things and moving forward?
Well, there are a couple of thoughts that come to mind. The first thing that comes to my mind is there's a course that I teach called Find and Test Your Business Idea.
Okay.
And I want to adapt that just a moment to anyone.
Please.
The basic idea is, rather than going out and like throwing yourself all the way into this wonderful business idea that you have and getting business cards made and getting your business license, first test it. Find a way to test it. So even with let's say that someone wants to write a book, test it. Write a short story, write articles, and send it out there. And do not ask your will and your family what they think about it.
Yeah.
Because they're so biased. They will tell you they'll tell you it's great, or they'll tell you it's crap. And their advice doesn't matter. Yeah. What you want to do is go to the people who would buy it and ask them, what do you think about it? And get their feedback. These are your most valuable customers. So test it, try it, just jump in. I do think you need to jump in and start creating something, but don't go all the way.
I love that you said your most valuable customers. That was from your book, The Focused Business.
Yes.
As soon as you said it, I remembered reading about it. Explain that real quick, because that's a concept that was very powerful for me, and it helped me to focus more on the right people to market to.
Yeah.
And spend my time with.
Well, there are lots of different people who can buy your product and service, and lots of people will buy your product and service. Yeah. It's not a question of who will, it's a question of who will buy the most of the highest value. And you want to create the profile of that kind of person. Otherwise, you may end up dealing with what I call siphons in the book. And siphons are people who ask you to constantly make exceptions Jimmy, I want you to come meet with me at bizarre hours to come take a look at a house. I want you to try and do commercial real estate for me. Whatever it is that's just way outside of your norm.
Yep.
Sometimes people get in this habit of, I want to be a people pleaser, and so they work with those people, and what happens is it drags down your business and drags down your ability to perform well. Not only that, but in a world right now where we're so dependent upon reviews.
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
Social proof.
Yelp reviews, Google reviews, even Amazon reviews for books. You get the wrong people working with you, you are asking yourself
for bad reviews. Oh,
but if you focus on just that core customer, the most valuable customer, you're going to please them. You're going to make them happy. And those are the kinds of people you want to attract.
Wow, that's so great. It's such a good advice. I know in my business with real estate, again, it's like anytime I'm dealing with somebody that it is like, they're like, hey, we want to do open houses every weekend. And I'm like, I don't do that. Like I don't work weekends, so I can't do you an open house every weekend. I have a team and we can do one once a month or something. But like, if I don't set that expectation up front, and if they're upset about it, I know they're not an MVP, a most valuable customer, person for me. And so I have to like either decide if I'm not going to take that business, or I just have to have a frank conversation, because otherwise I'm siphoning off my attention and my
refer them elsewhere. Refer them to somebody who's a better fit for what they do.
That's great. That's great. Well, I want to review real quick. You got these 4 books. We got The Myth of Multitasking. You've got The Focused Business. Love all of them, by the way.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, they're great. And then the 3rd book that you wrote was Invaluable.
Yeah.
And then the last one, The Power of Having Fun. This is the one that just came out.
Correct.
And sales, I've heard, have been very good.
It's been good. Yeah.
Awesome.
And all of those, by the way, it's interesting, the conversation we've had. Every principle that we've talked about touches on one or more of those.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. Well, that's why we want to have you on. I mean, your expertise, again, like for myself, you gave me permission to build my business by design, which I wasn't before. I mean, you caught me, I think I've only been a realtor for 2 or 3 years, and I was all over the place. And, people all the time ask me how I got to where I get with my productivity and my keeping my schedule, my processing time. Remember processing time? It's basically, instead of answering your phone or emails or texts as they come in, I choose time that I literally put in my schedule. So when I was prospecting from 8 to 11, I just had from 11 to 11:30 was processing time. And I never worried what I was missing from 8 to 11. I could focus on actually making those calls, because I knew from 11 to 11:30, I'd scheduled a half hour to get back to everybody. And I think some people let their day run them instead of you running your day. And it's just a designed way to build your business so that you're living it the way you want to. So I appreciate that, and thanks again for being on. I think people got a lot out of this. I'm going to link how to buy your books and your website to this podcast. So if you guys are interested in learning more, highly recommend all of his books, especially The Myth of Multitasking. If you find yourself doing a lot of things at once and maybe not feeling like you're as productive as you should be, you probably aren't being as productive as you should be. You should pick up the book. So thanks again, Dave.
All right. Thanks, Jimmy.
Appreciate it, man.
All right.
How's that, guys?